Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today. We are going to run through the basics of Primavera P6. Today, we're going to show you the client version primarily. There's also a web version, and we'll have a webinar later in the next few weeks, probably, to run through the web version. Okay, so you might hear it called P6 Client, and P6 EPPM for Enterprise Project Portfolio. I might have that backwards. Management System. Okay, so that's just a heads up of what we're going to run through today. So I'm Nicole Jardin. I'm actually in Montreal today, and I'm the founder and CEO of Emerald. And doing the main part of the presentation is Sue Familia, joining us from Wyoming today. She's an implementation specialist with Emerald. And with us too is Amy Paul. She's keeping us on track and making sure we're moving ahead. So she's our marketing coordinator, and she is also very knowledgeable on Unifier. Okay, let's talk about why a group chooses P6. So there's lots of different scheduling software out there in the marketplace. There's tons. There's simple stuff, and P6 is probably deemed the complicated big daddy, if you will, in the marketplace. Now, why do people choose P6? It's also maybe deemed more expensive, hard to learn, all those sort of common ideas about P6. So when you're looking for a platform that gets you a consistent approach for all your projects, that lets you share the data, which allows you to collaborate, okay? Collaborate within your own organization and potentially with third-party external companies. So that could be your clients, it could be your vendors, okay? And you can also mix and match that depending on your role in a project. Now, P6 generally is deemed as a construction engineering software tool, but there's really no reason for it to be pigeonholed as that, okay? Because it's such a very flexible tool, and it allows you to collaborate so nicely that there's no reason that it cannot cross into many other platforms, okay? So IT, portfolio management, pharmaceuticals, it's used in pharmaceuticals as well, quite regularly. So it's kind of got this pigeonholed perception that it's just for engineering projects and mega projects. Okay. Now, Oracle has launched another tool. It's purely cloud-based, only cloud-based. It's called OPC for short, Oracle Primavera Cloud. And they've taken a lot of P6 functionality and put it in there. Okay, so if you've got a smaller group and you feel like P6 might be too much, maybe too expensive in your ideas, and maybe just too much heavy lifting, and you just want a simpler cloud platform, we also have that Oracle Primavera Cloud, or OPC for short. So we've got lots of different options. Now, when it comes to P6, Sue is going to deep dive into it, but it lets you manage the schedule. So you put in your list of tasks, you do your logic tying up so the order things are going to be done in, but it does so much more than just dates. Okay, and this is where I'd say Primavera really shines above and beyond the competitors in the marketplace, is its ability to track other things. So we also have the ability to track issues and risks. Now, it's not a full-blown risk software tool, okay? OPC has a bit more risk functionality, but for the most part, we prefer to use an add-on tool called Safran Risk to do heavy-duty risk analysis, okay? But this allows you to highlight and manage issues and risks. Now, we've also got the ability to put resources, and resources can be people, they can be equipment, they can be materials that you're installing. So you can really configure that part of P6 to however you want, which allows us to do real-time earn value right inside of P6, okay? And not all tools have such nice functionality. Now, the other key thing with Primavera's tool is the ability to add extra fields into the system. So they're not just free-form fields, which we do have user-defined fields, but we also have the ability to put lists, dictionary lists, what are called codes, into the system. So it allows you to pivot the data many, many different ways. So this is a huge aspect that most of the competitors don't have. And the true multi-project, multi-user capability is also very limited in just about every other competitor. So these are some of the reasons to explore P6, okay? And I think it has a bad rap that it's too hard to learn. I find that a very big bad rap. And I remember a few years ago doing a training class for IT folks. And after day 2 of a 3-day class, one of the folks came up to me and said, "Okay, Nicole, when's it getting hard?" And I said, "Well, we already did resources and roles. That's the hardest part." He said, "Why does everyone say this software is so hard?" Okay, so that's a real live example of where the bad rap is not deserved. Okay, so keep that in mind if you're looking at it. Okay, so I think I'll skip the poll questions. What scheduling do you use? I'm going to skip that. Let's go into some other huge important pieces. So I already talked about how it's multi-project, multi-user. Okay. Now you might say, okay, well, so what? I just have multiple projects. Well, the benefit to this is as you get your team to do their updates every week, at minimum, you're trying to get every week at minimum, you get to schedule and you can see the impacts of one project to the other because you can put a logic tie between, let's say, an approval or completion in one project controlling the start of maybe a phase 2 in a secondary project. Okay, again, most tools do not have such functionality. So the teamwork capability goes up. And the way that the security profile works in the software allows you to, even within one project, I can hide some tasks if I wanted to from some of the users. Okay, so let's say I have a specialty engineering firm doing a work package, or perhaps a specialty construction group doing a work package. If I so choose within one project, I can hide some of their components so not everyone can see them. I could also make it its own project and have it link in to my main project. So this gives us so much nice functionality and flexibility on how you work with P6 with the extended team. That again, most tools in the marketplace just do not have that functionality. All right, so let's touch on some of the benefits and how it works, okay? So P6, it's a database that's been configured and designed from the very get-go, even when P3 was in DOS days, which I use. So, there you go. I'm showing my age. It was always designed to be for multiple users, multiple projects. Okay, so it's truly a portfolio tool. It's a database, so it's a single database. And even when I mentioned you could use it in the web, in a web platform versus a desktop platform, it's still using the same data set, all right? Which means your data is going to be centralized. And Sue's going to touch on the scheduling, she's going to touch on the resources, and she's going to touch on the costs, okay? She's going to show that to you in the software. So I'm going to turn it over to her so she can start showing you, and we're going to take a look, a deep dive into how this works. All right, I'm going to pass it on over. It's coming your way, Sue.
Okay. got it. And I'm going to, of course, share the good stuff.
This picture is making me want to go jump in the water. I got to tell you. Good. Okay, here she goes.
Okay, so when we're talking about P6, as Nicole mentioned, you get access to both the client and the web if when you buy what's called P6 EPPM. It is a named user license, of course, and so essentially each one of your scheduling people would need a license to access it. We are going to be looking at client today. As Nicole said, down the road, a few weeks, we will probably be doing another webinar for the web version. It's just hard to visit all of those pieces in one webinar. So you can see as here on my screen that we have many projects, and they're kind of organized based on a few items here. And what this does is it dictates our security as to what a scheduler or a user of the system can see, depending on what area they're working in. So perhaps if you're a contractor, you may have an EPS node for each one of your clients. Maybe you have one for each one of your departments that you have, or in the case of maybe you're an oil and gas company, you might want to have one maybe for each plant. So however you organize that data, you can do it in many different ways. And that's one of a huge strength with P6. And not only can you organize it via this structure here, but as Nicole touched on as well, is we have a coding system within P6. And that is how you can expand what you put in your system. And I'll talk about that coding a little bit later when we're looking at activities. Although you can do coding at project and the resource level as well. So let's start with our scheduling. So that's all about your dates, right? It's a huge piece when you are actually working with P6 and scheduling in general. So at this project level, we can see a high level of scheduling summary for in our Gantt chart here. So I can see, where each one of my projects is falling within my timeline, and the starts and the ends, things like that. I can also display a whole lot of information in my tables. So right now, I'm showing statistics for my projects. So I have, my total number of activities in each one of my projects. I've got my completed activities, my in progress, my not started activities. So I can display items like this so that I can see that high level information. And ideally, what we're going to want to do is compare that to our baselines. So, that data that was set out when we agreed on the schedule, and compare that, see what's going on with our baselines in comparison to where we are now, and we can track against that. We can see, whether we started on time or we didn't start on time. So, it looks like, in general, I've got, that start on this first project here was supposed to be in March, and it didn't start until September. So I'm already behind. So this is that high level view. P6 is really strong on that data. So there are a lot of fields that can be displayed in each one of these windows. As Nicole said, it might be overwhelming at first, but they're not really that hard to understand. And there's help right inside this tool, and you can get that training that to get your group going and working in the tool. So I have 4 projects that are open here. And let's say, I want to deep dive into each one of these projects. So I've got these all open at the same time, and I can go in and I can look at those activities in here. So of course, this is the most common place that people are working with their schedules. You're building it, and this is where you'd be working to build that. This would be where you'd put your progress on, etc. So, of course, I do have those 4 projects open. And if I go ahead and collapse these, I can see that here are my 4 projects. I've got them open all at the same time. So I can analyze them all together. I can take a look at what's happening in them collectively. Or if I just wanted to concentrate on one, I could open just the single project as well. So as I expand out, I can open these all up, and as I expand out, we're looking at our Gantt chart over here on the right. So generally, we like to show a baseline, and that's what we're comparing against to our current schedule. And you can see, this one here is not doing very well. This section, this work package, we started late, and it just made everything kind of go off the rails a little bit. But we can compare that, and not only can we compare to one baseline, if we perhaps have created other baselines, maybe you've updated and you want to take a look as compared to the last update that you've done. We can do multiple baselines. So you can see I've got yellow lines for baseline, and then I've got these orange lines, which are a secondary baseline. We can have up to 4 that we are comparing here. So you can do a lot of comparisons based on what you want to compare it to. So in my project here, I can see, I've organized this out. So I've got, my milestones, and this is true for all of these projects that I have here, these 4 projects. I've got my milestones. These milestones are, of course, my key deliverables, which more or less are done by the phase that they are completing. So, I've got engineering, I've got construction, I've got commissioning, and I've got, my startup as well. Next, I've got an area where I've organized my level of effort activities. So these activities are buckets for tracking things like, management activities, project management, maybe some cost control, or even general management. These activities are going to pretty much span the entire length of our project, or maybe a component of our project. And so you would use this kind of thing for resource management on those types of projects. You can still have costs on them. You can have resources related to that project management. So it's really valuable for tracking that. And then, of course, if you have timesheets that are associated to that, this would be where those people would put that time, would charge their time to. So as I'm going down, I have work scopes that are set out. And in this particular project, I've got work scopes in both my turbine as well as my reactor area. So I've put out some work scope packages that are work packages that are needing to be done in my civil turbine and my reactor. Now, this is a very simple project. For the demonstration, we've made it very simple. So your schedule is probably going to be most likely have more activities than this. But the idea is that I have a work package for civil works, in the turbine area. I've got a work package for civil works in the reactor area, and I can break down those pieces into work packages, or also known as WBS, work breakdown structure. So what's happening in each one of these that's going to give me a deliverable. again, you can see on the Gantt chart that we've got, these lines. And we can see, the variances, of course, that I pointed out before, but we've got these lines. So there's this sequence as to what you're going to be, the work and how it's going to be done. What sequence does it need to be done in order to be, of course, successful? So you may have logic between, within your work package, or perhaps you have logic that needs to go between work packages. So let's say, in this instance, I have, my civil works here, and that in my turbine area, and that may need to be done before I go into my reactor area. So I could go and I could select those two. Let's make sure I get the right one here. So I've got, okay, so I'm going to just go to my civil works here, and I've selected those two, and then I can build my logic by simply right-clicking and linking those two activities. So I can build that logic into my schedule, and just by highlighting two activities and putting that link in there, I am able to create that link. Now, another great thing in P6, and what really makes it shine above the competition, is that I can actually have logic between more than one project. So, of course, I have 4 projects that are open here, and maybe I have piping that depends on civil works. So the design of the civil works needs to be done in that reactor area. So let's say, that civil works needs to be done here. And we are going to, let me make sure I get the right one. The civil works is going here, and that needs to be done before I can go into my piping and be able to do the piping civil works here. So just going down and finding the proper area that I need to put that in. And so I would go and get that one. And then I could, again, link those activities. Oh, and I lost my one when I came down here. So let me go get it again. So I've got I should collapse down so I can find it easier, but scrolling works too. So I've got my civil area, and then I'm going to go down to my piping here. Again, as easy as right-clicking and linking those activities. Now, I have P6 set to schedule every time I make a change. And so it's automatically scheduling my project for me. Now, I don't have to do that every time. That is a setting that you can do on your options when you schedule. You can also schedule implicitly. So if you're not wanting to schedule each time you make a change, you can take that setting off, and then you can simply schedule by doing an F9 or scheduling the project on the fly, as I like to say. So you have different ways that you can decide when you want to schedule and how you want to schedule. So you may have different contractors that are doing piping or electrical, for example. So that's why it might make sense to split up your different areas of your projects into, of course, different projects. Because those contractors would be providing different schedules, and you want to maintain those schedules that they're providing for you, but you don't want to lose that inter-project dependencies that those projects have. So being able to set up that logic between is really a great thing to be able to maintain out there. Some other great features that we have in the way of activities is that when you start to update, what's going to control your your activity. Is your budget fixed? So you only have, so many man hours that you can use on a particular activity. Or, maybe you have to have a fixed duration on that activity. You have to get it done in, 20 days because that's what your commitment is. And so you may, if you're not going to be able to meet that commitment, perhaps you need to hire more people to get it done. And then you'll need to do that because you had to deliver it within those 20 days. So you can set up those different types of activities that you have there. So when you're looking at your sequencing, something that is really nice is being able to look at your logic as a whole. So we can look at a logic diagram. How have you built out your sequencing? So I'm just going to scroll up so I can see it across my entire project. I can go into each one of my work packages and see how those are all played out. But I can zoom in, I could zoom out, and I can see how is my project linked together? How are all of my activities linked together? So, this is going to be important so that you can get the right people to the right place at the right time. Because if you have a crew that, shows up too early and the work's not ready for them, that could be, pretty expensive. It may even result in, a claim or a dispute. So building out that sequencing well in P6 to make sure you have enough detail so your responsibilities that are assigned to each work group can perform their activities in a timely manner and when they need to perform them as well. Now, you've put together your list of tasks. You develop your durations. You've got your logic all set up in there. And really what this is heading towards is finding out how long it's going to take for you to deliver that project. So we have these red lines that start showing up in our Gantt chart. And these represent our critical path on our project. So that's an important piece because it's showing you that the work is, this path of work is controlling how long the project is going to take. It'll also highlight if you are late, if you have negative float for your project. So if you're late, obviously you're going to have to fix that and address how are you going to get that project back on track. Are you going to rearrange that work? Are you going to, instead of having, something that is out there that maybe is a start or finish to start, let's say in the case of, let me find one here that I can do. Like in my earthworks and my mobilization, perhaps, I want to shorten that up so that I'm going to be able to more likely deliver it on time. Perhaps instead of taking it, I have to make sure I grab the right thing here. Nope. There we go. Maybe on my mobilization, what I want to do is I can mobilize and let that activity occur for 5 days. And then maybe I can come in here and then start my piping earthworks 5 days after. So I might want to change the way that I'm representing this particular logic tie and try to shorten and shore up my project and rearrange my order of work. So some different strategies of how you could have that deliver on time. So the codes, both Nicole and I have talked about the codes and just what the importance and the true kind of what rises to the top for P6 is that we have the ability to add fields that are very organized in here. So an example would be, there are two types of fields, of course. So there is a field called the code. And that code is where you would build out dictionaries. And then you would assign those dictionary values to your activities so that you can tag and bag, is what we like to call it, your activities, so that you can take a look at everything in the way that maybe your managers or your stakeholders are going to want to see that data. So it's really very powerful for you to be able to do that. So in this example here, I have a vendor and a crew. So perhaps, I can tag who's in charge of that deliverable for that particular work package or that particular activity. And I would open that up and I can see, all of my options here. So this is going to belong to engineering, the X engineering company. And I also have a crew assigned. So that crew is who is assigned to actually perform that activity. So perhaps what I would want to do is I would want to look at my vendors and which crew. So I can go out and I can do this this grouping here, and I can utilize those codes to group. So if I wanted to do my vendor, I could look at it by vendor, and this is way down here. I could look by my vendor, and I'm just going to take it down to one level. And then maybe I want to look by my my crew, which is up, of course, at the top. So then I would have my crew. Now I can display this information in a way that I've got my my vendor, and then each crew and what the activities that they are responsible for. So it'll go down and it's going to show me all of my different companies and all of my different crews that I have assigned there as well. What I also might want to do is maybe I just want to look at Engineering X's information and provide that to them. So then I could go and I'm just going to search for this. I might want to filter that. And so I can use those codes and these tagging and bagging items to filter, as well as put them in order and group them by them. So it really is a powerful thing that you can do. People are not going to be spending, time looking through pages and pages of Gantt chart. So filtering is going to help you out with that. Then they're going to be able to see just what they are responsible for on the Gantt chart that they need, and they can focus on that. So you want to be sure that you can answer any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off again. I'm going to bring back all of my activities, and I'm going to take it back to my WBS as well, because I want to show you a different type of piece of data. So we also have our user-defined fields. And what user-defined fields are, and that's one of those is right here. It is an indicator field. And with user-defined fields, we have the ability to add fields that don't have a pick list. So the different kinds of data you can have are flags, dates, costs. You can have you can have fields that you can calculate, and you can have numerics or text fields for notes. So they're very flexible, and you can enhance your P6 to make it work better for your team by using these two types of fields. So the example that I have here is an indicator field. And this is from one of our add-on tools that Emerald has called P6QA. It's a quality assurance type of tool. And it's highlighting those activities that are missing logic. So because it's highlighting that, I can go in and, maybe I need to put a logic tie in between and make sure that those are actually working and doing what I need them to do. So a lot of good data that you can tag and bag on your activities, in your projects, and your resources as well. So there's several different windows that you can utilize these types of fields for. Another huge part of P6 is resources and roles. So, this is kind of the bread and butter of your projects. You need to know what resources you need and what you need to have available at any given time. First of all, what do I need, and when do I need to have them? So when we first look at resourcing, of course, you want to be able to put your resources on an activity, and it's very easy to do so. So if I take a look at this activity, this earthworks activity, I've figured out how long it is, and it might depend on, if I put one person on it, how long it's going to take, if I put 2 people on it, or if I put 10 people on it. How am I going to place those resources on there? So you can see this layout that I've applied here has some different fields on it. So essentially we have 2 layers that are associated with putting the people or the things that are going to do the work on your activity. We have roles, which are basically a high level. Think of it as a grouping. We have certain resources that can fit into this group of extraction engineering in the case of this one up at the top here. Or we have our individual resources, and we have 3 types of resources. So we have, you can see over here on the side at the bottom here, I have different icons, and they're for labor, non-labor, or equipment, and materials. So you can really put a lot of detail for what you're going to be doing on that job site. So in this case, we have a backhoe, we have a dozer, and those are there to do our earthworks. But we also have, some piling that we're going to be using. And then we have, of course, our labor that's going to go into performing this. So this is, let me move this out a little bit. This is a 45-day activity. And when we put that in there, we can put in, how many units are we anticipating? Some of this gets filled in from the resource level because there's a lot of detail you can put into each resource. I can put, my budget, my units per time for each individual resource. So when I do add it, it's going to calculate that for me. I could adjust it if I need to on my budgeted units. Perhaps, when I start getting going, I've got this unit price as well. That also is put in your dictionary that you've built. And that dictionary can be really flexible on that. You can have different units and prices for like day shift versus night shift. Maybe you have a price change in different periods of time, maybe per year. You can depict that so that it's automatically going to calculate that out for each one of your resources when you're applying them to these activities. Now, all this is going to feed in to some graphics. And so if I am going and I want to analyze my resources and I want to look at maybe some overloads that are happening with my resources, I can go and I can find, let me move this over here a little bit. I can find, where am I in trouble on my engineering lead here? I can see that, I've got some work that's already been done. That's the dark blue that's very small. I've got what they're actually set to work on. And I can see, because of these red bars here, that I have a big problem. I have many times the amount of work that my team members, then I can have my team members work. So, even if I increase their work week, or even if I, increase the time of days, the time during the day that they work, there's no way I'm going to be able to resolve this. So P6 is going to allow you to see that very easily and do that. So maybe I want to be moving some of this work around so that I can either, even out when my engineering leads are working, or perhaps I need to hire another engineering company to come and help out for a while. Maybe I have to have another location that might have the time to come and assist to do that as well. But I can see that, my drafting engineering as well. So I have a lot of work that's kind of piled up. How am I going to alleviate that? How am I going to get rid of those problems and so that I can get that work done? And P6 is going to highlight that for me. So it's fantastic. It can help you feel, it can also help you deal with those overloads. It's kind of an advanced topic, but you can set priorities and rearrange that work and hopefully, not have that work be bumping into, your critical path activities, depending on where they're falling. So I showed you overloads, but we can look at it in different ways as well, other than overloads on that. I can go and I can look at my activities and how they are they're working out. So in this case, I'm showing some budget numbers. In some cases, it looks like, we're going to need to use less. In some cases, we might have to use more. So it means how are we tracking? And this is not, doesn't have a whole lot of progress on it, but it's going to allow you to track, where are we? How are we measuring up to what we expected? Is it good? Or are we maybe not getting some of that work done and we're going over and things like that? You can't completely tell at this point, but it's still letting me know that this is potentially how this is tracking and how those costs are going to be affected. We can also show histograms. So if I wanted to look at several resources at a time and what they're assigned to do and what they're looking like, I can look at them and I can see, generally what are my requirements here. I'm looking at my engineering. And I can see, it's kind of erratic in here. It looks like, I've got a whole bunch of work in just this cluster of time, and it's not very smooth. So maybe I can move this work around a little bit, and maybe I could move it up into, some previous months. Maybe I can take it out into some subsequent months as well to kind of even out that workload here. So a lot of good things that you can see in the way of your resources. Now, costs. Let's take a look at some costs and get an understanding of how we can look at costs. So we can look at costs in a few different ways. We looked at, our labor, our non-labor, our equipment, the materials. So each one of those is in your resource section. In some cases, you may not have an expense may not fit into a resource nicely. So there's other ways that you can deal with that. So in the case of, let me find one here. Let's say we have an expense. We have a shipping expense that goes along with shipping our equipment. And we have a fixed rate for that shipping. So I can see that we are shipping 8 units, and they have a total of, roughly just under $83,000. And it's calculating our budget for us. So that's allowing us to see the overall impact. And as we go, I can edit that. So if I had, my units that went down, maybe I only have 7 units now. I can depict that, and then it's going to, recalculate. Then as we update, we could start our activity, and we could start putting in our actual values, and it can help us calculate where we are, where we ended up at. Maybe we are getting this information maybe from another system like SAP, or we could do it manually here. So just kind of depends on how you are receiving that information. And then once we've got all of that, those costs and things, we can see that we have some roll-up data here for each one of these. So I've got, my total costs. I've got things that I can see for each one of my work packages. What do I have for total costs? What do I have for my labor, my non-labor, etc.? How are we tracking? So I can see, overall on my my turbine and reactor project that, we had planned that we had budgeted that we were going to be about 91.6. And we're going a little bit over that. So that's something that we want to address. We want to take a look at, and we can see where our actuals are to date for each one of these. We can see how much is left, and we can also forecast where we might be ending up, and where we're going to expect to be over. It's important to be able to forecast. Because as we do our updates, we need to be able to react to what's going to kind of play out based on what the information that we've already gotten there. So if we're going, over cost, maybe we need to look at some change orders with our client or something of that nature. And so we could look at ways to cut costs on upcoming work or something like that as well. So P6 lets you look at it. It puts together all that data from labor, non-labor, materials, and expenses, and puts that there for you in very nice terms, and organizes it in a way that it's easy to see and to work with. So we could also look at graphing in that respect as well. So we've got our oops, wrong one. So we've got our graphing for, our engineering in this case. And we can see, how is that tracking? How is it going to play out as we go forward and go from there? And of course, it's not just about, planning. We need to look at updating our projects and things as well, and how we would do that. So with updating on your projects, you do it still right here in this activities screen. So you would do you would deal with your project as you are progressing, as you're going through. And you might notice that, we've got some of these blue bars over here. These ones are in progress. We've got some green ones. These are ones that are coming up that are not on our critical path. And then, of course, we've got our red that is on our critical path. So we have updating that could come in many different ways. We can put that updating in, maybe we're getting spreadsheets or something of that nature that's telling us what's updating. We're getting those progress reports. We could put it in manually. We could use a tool like Team Member that Oracle has. We also have, Emerald has two great tools. One that is called CAPS that you can put you can progress activities in. And we've just done a big revamp on that CAPS tool. So we're pretty excited about the way that we have it working and all the things that it can do now. And we also have a P6 loader tool that can use Excel. So when you do get those progress reports back and they're in Excel, you can do a mass data load using one of our tools called P6 Loader. So if you're going to be doing it manually, or how does it happen just in general? Let's say we want to update, we have this activity that's in progress here and it's started and we want to finish it. So we would say, okay, I want to finish this. It's completed. It's going to take it up to 100% complete. And P6 is going to assume that it used 100% of what we had budgeted there. But if we needed to, and we needed to adjust those actual units, we could certainly go in and adjust those individually as well. But P6 is going to try to help you as you're doing your updates to kind of make it a little bit easier for you, so that you don't have to put in absolutely everything manually, if it goes, I guess, according to plan, if you will. And then finally, I'm not going to go really deep into earned value, but P6 also does, it calculates your earned value for you. And I'm going to open up a different set of projects because I've got more progress on these different sets of projects. So ultimately, what you're trying to understand is how are you doing as your project progresses? How am I doing cost-wise? How am I doing in the event of my schedule as well? Let me see. I need to get over there. It's taking a moment for these to open. But some of you may be, familiar with these types of things. Your cost and schedule performance. How am I doing with my cost? How am I doing with my schedule? And P6 is going to be keeping track of that earned value according to what you have set out in what you have in your baseline. So if I'm looking at, let's say, this document control, this release to document control activity, you can say, I'm not doing very well on this. In fact, I'm doing pretty poorly. And my time is over. It's taking a lot of time. And of course, my cost is reflecting that as well. So generally, in a number is on these SPI and CPI, if that number is 1 or less, that's good. And if it's 1 or more, it's not so good. So on that particular activity, I'm not doing so great. But the one above it, I actually am. It's below 1, and so both on my schedule and my cost, I'm doing better. And so you can use these to go out and get your information on your earned value, and you can look at graphics as to how you're going to be tracking on your estimated at completion. And where your planned was and things like that. So it's a very quick overview in P6 Client. So it just means, you've got these awesome things that you can handle out here. So that was a very quick overview. I know we are running out of time. So that just means, we looked at client, and that means that, the software is physically installed on our machine or our laptop, or as we alluded to, we will be having a web-based version as well of this webinar. So with that, if we don't have any questions,
No questions came through. So, okay, I'll take it back
right.
over.
Okay.
And Sue, I just think you said the CPI, SPI backwards.
Oh, did I?
So, yeah, I think you said it backwards. So
Okay. Oops.
that's okay.
Apologize.
No problem. No problem. All righty. Okay. All right. Great. Well, thanks for coming and joining us today, and just getting a quick overview on P6 and using the client example. Hopefully this gave you some ideas of the types of things that maybe your team could explore and look at going more in the direction of P6. If you're already using P6, there might be things that you haven't had a chance to use. Okay, so there is one question that came in. So what sort of integration is allowed on platforms such as Power BI or Tableau? Okay, so P6, of course, ships with reports, but they're not collaborative, if you will. You need to be a P6 user to access them. So to get the data from P6 out to a platform that non-P6 users can work with and see, you can do that. You can push the data out. Now we, as Emerald, have built a tool that goes in the middle that takes snapshots, puts it into our data warehouse. It's called P6 Reporter. And then you can report out to other platforms such as Power BI or Tableau. Now, you do need a minimum of a web service license. Okay, it's part of the Oracle agreement that you do still get a license, but it is significantly cheaper than a full-blown user license. Okay, and if you're looking at doing that kind of work, let us know. We've done a lot of it, and maybe the P6 Reporter middleware is a good fit. Okay, you do have the ability to grab published data. Okay, so that is possible. The reason we don't usually do that with our clients is that that data is very hard to work with, harder to work with. I shouldn't say very hard. It's harder to work with than P6 Reporter. So the way we framed up P6 Reporter, we've merged data tables together to make that much easier. Okay, so that's that. We have people who export data, but you've got to do that manually every time. So there's a person involved, but you can export data out to Excel and then have it report up. But it's more manual. Okay, so that's another possibility. And then we do have a few clients who back end right off the database. This we highly discourage. But yeah, so there are different ways you can tackle that. Okay, so hopefully I answered that. But if you want to learn more, send us an email and we can discuss it further. All right. Yeah, so thanks for spending the last hour with us. We showed you P6. The other tools that Oracle has for scheduling, as I mentioned, is OPC, Oracle Primavera Cloud. So we'll have a webinar on that coming up in the next few months over the summer. So if you're interested in seeing that tool, take a look at that. And also, as Sue mentioned, we will add a P6 EPPM or web version of this into the schedule. We're just working on July and August now. So it'll be up in the next week probably, and you can look at that too. If you want to reach out, you can reach out. My info is there, and we can throw Sue's info in the chat. It's just suef@emeraldassociates.com. So you can reach out if you have any questions or want to learn more. Okay,